welcome back to another episode of Ancient Tracks, a Beast Inquiry. Chuck, why don't you introduce our guest?
Sure, love to. I am going to introduce one of my best friends, and she's like a sister to me, and her name is Mary Fabian, and I love her dearly. And Mary, is so good to have you on the show, and we would like for you to tell us, about some of the things you've experienced, and maybe you could tell us about your first encounter, and we could start out with that and go from there.
Okay, thank you, Chuck and Kim, for having me on. My name is Mary Fabian. I am the founder of Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project. It's an organization, of course, out of Pennsylvania. You'll find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, but I really am not much on Instagram. But my first encounter, boy, that was back in 1967. I was 11 years old, and I would go out and hike by myself quite a bit. We lived on a 100-acre farm, and I would go out mostly, I would either ride my horse around to go exploring, or else I would just go hiking out along the gas line trail at the back of the property. But this one day, this was summertime. Honestly, I cannot remember what month, but all I remember is that it was summertime. In 1967, I went hiking along the gas line trail by myself, and Western Pennsylvania, our topography, it's, I guess you could describe it like West Virginia. Our topography is hills and hollers, really deep hills and hollers. We're in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And I was going down the hill towards the hollow, and directly across from me, to my right, there were woods, and then to the left, there was a field with some scattered brush. And just out of the woods to my right, this large black figure started walking across out of the woods. It walked over to the trail that I was on, and he stopped and just looked at me and then continued on. Now, he was covered in hair, black hair, and his features reminded me of a Neanderthal, what you would see in books and in the movies as being Neanderthal type features. Now, I'm not saying that he was a Neanderthal, just that his facial features looked like a Neanderthal with a heavy brow and high cheekbones, and his face was mostly bare except for a beard going down, but he was completely covered with hair, black hair. And at that point in time, back in 1967, we had, honestly, I had never heard of a Bigfoot. This was before the Patterson-Gimlin film came out. And all we had ever heard about at that point in time was the Siberian snowman or the Yeti. So whenever I saw this figure, I thought it was a man wearing a black fur coat. And I thought, gee, that's weird. Why is he wearing a fur coat? It's summertime, it's hot. He must be hot. But thinking back, he was covered with hair. And he didn't do anything. He didn't vocalize or roar. I didn't smell anything. All he did was stop and look at me. And then he continued on just straight across into the field on the other side. And the memory of it just stuck in the back of my brain for decades. And if it was just an ordinary man, I would have forgotten about it in a week. But it just stuck in my brain. And it wasn't until when was it the early 2000s, whenever I was having more Bigfoot activity around my property, that I remembered this figure, and it connected as to what he was. It wasn't a man, it wasn't a human. That was a Bigfoot.
Mary,
Yes.
how tall was the one that you saw there at the first?
All I can tell you was that he was big. He was bulky, shaped more like a sumo wrestler, I guess you could say. Maybe not quite sumo, but not a big belly, but just big and bulky and very large. To an 11-year-old kid, and I'm short to begin with, he was tall. He was very tall. But
Was you frightened at all?
No, I honestly wasn't. Because he did nothing threatening to me. He just stopped and looked at me and continued on. There was really nothing to it.
That's a pretty incredible encounter for you, not feeling any kind of fear. It wasn't aggressive.
No.
It just walked on its way. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he was, distance-wise from me, he was maybe 50 yards directly across from me, across this holler. And so he wasn't very far from me, but the holler was in between us. It was a pretty deep one that I had to go down into. But after he walked across, I just continued on my way to wherever it was that I was hiking to.
Did you get to watch him as he was leaving, or were there trees in the way?
Yeah, I watched him as far as I could, which honestly wasn't very far. There was some brush inside the field that he went into, maybe 20 yards into the field across from the pathway. Then he went behind some brush, and that was the last I saw of him.
Did you ever talk to anybody about what you had seen that time, or did you just
blow
it off?
I just blew it off, because to me it wasn't a big deal. It was just more a matter of different, that he had Neanderthal features, and I think that's what stuck in my brain most of all, along with the wearing a fur coat in the middle of summer.
Right.
But no, I usually shared everything with my dad, but no, this time I didn't. I wish I would have, though, because he's the one that originally told me about what we know of in Pennsylvania. The old name for Bigfoot was the hairy man or the wild man.
Right.
And that's what he had told me about whenever I was a kid.
Very interesting. Back to what happened after that later on in life. Talk about some of those experiences, if you don't mind.
Okay. Around that same point in time, we were camping. My dad got a camping trailer, and we would go camping up on the mountain. And the first thing in the morning, whenever we were camping, I would wake up, eat my breakfast, and I would rush out the door and disappear into the woods. And I would just go hiking and exploring. I would be out all day long, just getting lost, exploring trails, game trails. And I would occasionally run into these strange, what we know of today as tree structures, where trees would be woven the entire tree broken off or taken down, and just maybe 4 or 5 of them woven into each other, or broken branches that were twisted, or trees that would be twisted. And I would see those, and that stuck in my mind that, okay, this is different. And then other times I would be hiking along and rocks would get thrown at me, or tree branches would be thrown at me. And whenever that would happen, you get the message at that point in time, whenever something's throwing rocks at you, that you're not wanted to come that way.
Right.
So I would just stop and say, okay, you don't want me here. I'll just go back. And I did. I would just turn around and walk away and just walk in another direction. But I would never see anything.
How scary being a little girl walking in the woods and rocks are thrown. What did you think it was? Did you have any idea?
No, didn't have a clue. I thought it was, of course, what else would have hands that would throw rocks? I thought it was humans, maybe hunters or something, but I would never hear or see another human back there.
Odd that you just thought, okay, it's best for me to turn around and go.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Time for me to leave.
Yep. Exactly, yeah.
Mary, you've had some things around a house or two, haven't you?
Yes, I had. Whenever I remarried my husband, Lou, we married in 2004, and I moved up to where his home was, north of Pittsburgh. And whenever I moved into his home, immediately things started. The first thing that happened was something beat on the side of the house. I was asleep at night, and it woke me up, and big bang right behind my head. And then I heard this garbled, growly speech to somethings talking to each other. And that woke me up, and I wondered, what the heck? At first, I thought it was the previous owners, an elderly couple, the ghosts of the elderly couple. But it wasn't until maybe a year or so later that I discovered Bigfoot
Right.
was in the area. I found different Bigfoot groups online. But I know the activity, the beating on the side of the house, that continued for 12 years while we lived there.
Wow.
And it would peek into the windows or the back door. We had a glass patio door, and it would look in there. I had a border collie that she would station herself in front of that back door, and she would just watch constantly whatever was going on back there. And I would know that the Bigfoot was back there whenever she would alert me. Her hackles would go up, and she would give this very soft growl, a mixture between a growl and a whine. And it was very soft. She wouldn't do it loud or anything, but it was just a growl and a whine at the same time. And she would back up, crawling, until she was up against my legs, just shaking in absolute terror. And it was after a period of time that she would do this, it would make me very angry. And because whatever it was, I figured it was bullying her, doing it deliberately just to see her frightened and in terror. She was a rescue dog, who had been abused by her previous owners. And so I was very protective of her. But the one night, and this would always happen at nighttime, I was just sitting there, and she did that. She crawled back to me, giving that mixture of the whine and the growl, and I was just so angry at it, whatever was scaring her. So I jumped up and ran to the back door, tore the door open. I had a golf club sitting there, and I grabbed the golf club and I chased after it up the hill, and he just ran off.
Did he ever come back?
Oh yeah, he made a habit of, he would come back. He was on a steady schedule. I think I was on his, he had a route that he would take probably, and I was on his route. He would do that just about every 2 to 3 weeks, that he would stop by and visit.
Now, Mary,
yeah.
Was Lou privy to all this stuff that was going on, or?
Yeah, after a while I would, at the beginning, I would holler at him for moving the security light at the back of the house, because he had a motion sensor security light, and it was on the top of, right above the eaves of the house. And we lived in a low ranch, and because sometimes this thing would come around and the security light wouldn't come on. And I was wondering what the heck. And I would go out the next day and see that the light had been moved so it wouldn't trigger. And I hollered at Lou. I said, "Why do you keep moving that security light? We need it to point back in the back there so I know what's coming around." And he said, "I'd never move it. I've never touched it." And I said, "Something's moving it then. If it's not you, who is?" But I figured that's what he was doing. He was coming up alongside, just underneath the eaves where it wouldn't catch him, and he would reach up and move that light.
That kind of creeps me out.
A lot of people experience that too. That's not something that's uncommon.
Yeah, it's just creepy that they would know to scooch along the wall of the house to move a light.
Yep, he was a smart bugger. But,
yeah. Did you only see him, or was there more?
I only saw him, just his shadow as he ran up over the hill whenever I chased him. And then the one time whenever I was out in the backyard drying my hair, and there was a rock wall at the back of behind the house. As I was sitting there drying my hair in the sunshine, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, and I saw him raise up. I assume it was the same one. He raised up so his head and shoulders were above that rock wall. He was sitting there watching me. And the setting sun was behind his head, so I really couldn't make out any features. But I could see his silhouette and the color of his hair. And this one, he was like a reddish gold color. His hair was very pretty. It sparkled in the sunshine. It was really pretty hair, but I wagged my finger at him and I said, "I see you, SOB." Yeah, he ducked down and went away. He got busted.
Dang it, she saw me.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, you said that he would show up once every 2 to 3 weeks. Was there ever a time that he would be gone longer for a couple of months? Do they migrate, or was he just always there?
Yeah, he was always there.
Okay.
Every 2 to 3 weeks, like clockwork, he was there. And I would find footprints up over the hill in the mud. I would go hiking up over the hill, and I found bare footprints in cold weather where any sane human wouldn't be running around in their bare feet in cold weather. But these were maybe 9 or 10 inches long. But they were fairly deep, so whatever was pretty heavy.
Right.
I would hear their vocals every so often, whistles and whoops.
There was more than one. He was just the only one that bugged you.
He was the only one that would come down to the house. And apparently, there was, although there was one night that there was more than one that came to the house. The one night, I think that I overstepped my boundary during the day. I had gone up over the hill and stopped and did a couple whoops, and I didn't hear any reply because that was during that TV show, Not Finding Bigfoot. And I was just imitating what I saw on there. I did a couple whoops and didn't hear anything, and so I went back down the hill to the house. But then something woke me up at about 2:30 in the morning, something beating on the side of the house, only this was on all sides of the house.
Oh, wow.
And there was a smaller something up on the roof just running back and forth. I could hear it running back and forth across the roof.
I've heard a lot of stories about stuff like that happening, of a juvenile jumping up and getting on a trailer or getting on a house and running across like that.
Yeah, my husband, he was sound asleep next to me, and I'm trying to wake him up, and he would not wake up. He had worked real hard. He worked in construction, road construction, heavy machinery operator. And so he was always exhausted whenever he came home because it was early to the job and late coming home. But I had a heck of a time trying to wake him up. And whenever I did wake him up, I think he was still half asleep because I told him, I said, go check the doors, make sure everything's locked. And so he went around the house and made sure everything was locked up, which it was. And he came back to bed, and he does not remember me waking him up.
Oh.
He missed it all.
He did. He missed it all.
Did he ever experience anything, or did he sleep through them?
He slept through everything. While we lived at that house, he never saw any wildlife except for the groundhog in the back, rabbits and groundhogs.
That's sad to live out there and not to get to experience it.
I know. And when we left there, we sold that house in 2016, and we were building a new home, and moved into our new home in February 2017. And while we were building the new home, I would come out to the property and check on things, and I would find footprints, Bigfoot footprints in the mud on the property. So I knew they were here. I would find tree structures down the road, maybe a mile or so. And, so I knew they were here also.
They like you, Mary.
Gee, thanks.
So they stay away?
The new place, they stay away. Well, I've seen one of them 3 times here across the road. And then 2 other times late at night while he was chasing deer right behind the house. I do nothing here to catch their attention. I don't want the attention.
Right.
No thanks. But this one, he's an older one. He's like a grayish brown, and he's very lean. More like an athletic build to this one. And this one, I think he's around 7 to 8 foot tall, right around that range.
You saw him running?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've seen him running across the backyard.
How fast was he?
This one, I have no idea, but he was just about as fast probably as the one Chuck and I saw out in Oklahoma.
Oh, at the casino?
Yep.
Yeah, let's go into that story, Mary. If you don't mind, I'll let you tell it.
Okay. This was, what was that, 2017? No, 2018? Yeah, 2018.
Yes, I think so.
My sister and I were invited on a expedition out in Oklahoma. There were about 14 of us, I think, and Chuck was among them. And my sister and I went out, had a great time. My sister, she would always, not always, but most of the time, she would go along with me whenever I would go on camping trips or expeditions. And she was scared out of her wits. She wouldn't pay any attention. She would spend most of the time on her phone, but she wanted to protect me, her little sister. And yeah, we were out there for an entire week, and just about everyone had an experience or sighting. It was a great week. But every time something would go on, she would be on her phone, so she would miss it all. And this one night, we were on our way back from an exciting evening. I think we're headed back to camp, which was maybe about three hours away, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the one gentleman, he was having problems with his truck. We had a 7-vehicle caravan going on. So we all pulled over into a parking lot of a casino. And everybody got out, and they were all gathered around his truck trying to figure out what's going on. But the 4 of us in the one truck, there was myself and my sister in the back seat, and then the driver and Chuck in the front passenger seat. Now, I was sitting behind the driver, and my sister was sitting behind Chuck. And we were just sitting in the parking lot facing kind of towards the casino building. It was to our left.
But yeah, facing north. We were facing north.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it was ahead and to our left. And we're just sitting there. The driver and my sister, as soon as the truck stopped, they got on their phones, and they were playing on their phones. And Chuck and I were more experienced. We both know that doesn't matter where you're at. You pay attention. You practice situational awareness. You just keep an eye out no matter what. And so we're sitting there, and I caught movement, from out by the casino building. And I think it was the casino building and another building next to it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And between the 2 buildings, this tall, dark figure came rushing out, running full blast across this parking lot, through the pickup trucks, and across the parking lot under the bright lights, because this is 12:30 at night, and across the highway and into the woods on the other side. And Chuck, he spoke first, and you said,
I think I just saw a Bigfoot.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, I did too. And Dave and my sister, they both looked up and they said, what? And Chuck and I were all excited and everything, so we got out and we were telling everybody else, and they were disappointed because they were all facing away from it. And I remember asking Dave, I said, I hope you have a dash cam. And he said, no, I've been meaning to get one, but never got.
And about that time, Mary, if you remember, the manager of the casino and I guess some of the security people come out there because they were trying to figure out what we were doing out there in the parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I ran up to them and said, "Hey, do you guys have cameras around your casino?" And they said, "Well, yes, we do." And I said, "Y'all probably need to go back and look at your footage." I said, "Because we just saw a Bigfoot run across, and boy, they took off running to the casino like as fast as they could." And of course, they're not going to let you look at any of the film footage of something like that. That they just don't do that. But that was a very interesting night, to say the least.
Oh, it was.
And tell the story about this was during the week that we had done this, but tell us the time about Debbie having her very first sighting. And I will say from the get-go, Debbie was scared to death. She did not want to go out at night when we went out.
No.
She was just terrified.
She was, yeah.
Until we'll tell the story and then we'll finish it up on what happened with Debbie after that.
Okay. Yeah, she was scared as all heck. She would not get out of the vehicle whenever we would be out at night. She would just stay in the truck playing on her phone or going to sleep or whatever. But this one night, it was the night after you and I had our sighting. Right. And we kept getting on her about being on her phone. And so she said, "Okay, yeah, I'll get off my phone." And we were heading out of an area that was very active. You know, quite a few of yourself and I think a few others saw some Bigfoot. And
yeah, we had already seen 4 of them at one time.
Yeah. And so we were heading out of that area in our 7-vehicle caravan. And let's see, I think we were in your truck that night.
Yes.
And Debbie and I, we were in the back seat. Debbie was sitting behind you. And we were heading out and we went around a slight curve. Mm-hmm. And just as your headlights went into the woods across, she saw something up in a tree. But it wasn't until a few moments after we went around the curve and went maybe about 100 feet that she said something. And she said, "I think I saw something."
Yeah.
And I asked her, I said, what'd you see, Deb? And she said, "Something fuzzy." It was hard dragging it out of her because she was in shock.
Yes, she was.
Total shock. And finally we got it out of her that she saw a Bigfoot sitting up in the tree. She describes it as like a little boy sitting on a swing with his hands up, holding both, like in a Y of a tree, and holding both branches to either side. And the 2 women in the vehicle behind us, they saw it jumping down. So that corroborated her story of what she saw. But we traveled a little ways, and after we figured out what it was that she saw, you radioed ahead and to Kumbo and let them know that Debbie saw a Bigfoot. So we turned around, the whole caravan, we all turned around and went back. And whenever we found that tree, there was nothing in there. And she was mad.
Yes, Debbie was mad. She was real mad.
She was. She said, because she thought, "Oh no, they'll never believe me that there was something there." She was expecting it to still be there up in the tree. But no, the 2 ladies who were driving behind us, they let us all know they saw it jumping down. And so that was a fantastic sighting for her. It she's still afraid going out, but now she's not on her phone as much. She'll grab the spotlight and she'll shine it up in the trees.
Mary, the one thing that I remember about that night is her whole transition changed. And what I mean by that is, as we were trying to get back to where we were camped at, she was hanging out. She had rolled the window down in my truck, and she had the spotlight out the window, and she was looking at every tree that we passed by on the way we got to camp. She wanted to see another one so bad she couldn't stand it. But her demeanor had changed. She wasn't terrified anymore. She finally had that feeling that this thing is real. It's not going to hurt me. I want to see another one. And just that whole transition was just really cool.
She caught the Bigfoot bug.
She did.
Oh, she did. Big time. Yes, she did. She had believed me whenever I told her what I had seen and experienced. But I think there was still that small, tiny percentage of doubt that, okay, my sister going out with all these crazy people after this big thing. But no, she got the bug. She jumped into Bigfooting 100% now.
Yeah. Has she ever said, what about him sticks with her? Did she see his eyes? What was it?
She drew a picture of what she saw. I think we had gone by, we were driving pretty slow, but I don't think she could really make out features. I don't know. I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you what color it was. That would be up for her to say. But she, most remembered and described it as looking like it was sitting in the Y of a tree, just like a little boy would, only it was it wasn't a small thing. It was a very large, hairy being.
That was a heck of a trip for that week. I mean, we saw so many different things and experienced so many different things.
Yes.
And one of the funniest things I think happened while we were there, and I can't remember the name of this little town. Mary, I know you're probably know what I'm fixing to talk about, but there was I don't remember the name of the town, but it was a real small town. There were trailer houses everywhere. And we went driving through there in our 7 pickup caravan that we had. And we were actually looking for places where we could hunt that night and research. And we finally realized that there was a dead end at the end of this little town, and we had to turn back around and go out the same way that we came in. And what the amazing thing is I have a great big Bigfoot face sticker on my truck. And when we drove through there coming back, there was cars that wasn't even there when we first got there. There were cars lining up by the trailer house. And all we hear is, hey, these guys are Bigfoot. And I think Kubo and everybody said, well, I think it's time for us to get out of here before we get attacked.
Yes. I know people were lined up just staring at us, and I'm thinking, holy crap, deliverance, man.
Yeah.
And I've got relatives up in the mountains, hillbilly relatives up in the mountains of West Virginia. I never thought of deliverance. Holy crap.
Yeah. But that was hilarious. I was laughing so hard.
Oh, my.
But we had some good times that week. It was an incredible week, to say the least.
It was. Oh, my. It was. I'll never forget it because we experienced so much and heard so many vocals and saw so many things. It was just fantastic. But the problem is, and Dave would set out his audio recorder everywhere we stopped. and he didn't have time to review his audio, so he sent the SIM card to me, and I'm listening to it. I plugged it into the computer and brought it up, and nothing was on it. Every single file was blank.
We went to so many different places, and a lot of places that I had been to many times. And I was really glad that we actually got to take you and Debbie out to Brown Springs and see that area. And there was just a whole lot of areas that we went to that I was very familiar with. And Kumbo was very familiar with it too, because he had done research in a lot of those areas too. And it was just a great time for all of us. It was just an amazing trip.
Oh, it was. It's one I'll never forget. Brown Springs. And I was so thankful and so honored to have my photo taken with you and Kumbo and Dee, and
right.
Such an honor.
Well,
talking about Brown Springs. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's an honor to have you on the picture too, Mary. I mean, I got a lot of respect for you, and I love you dearly, and it means a lot to me too. So
mutual. And
go ahead, Kim.
Y'all said that you had been to Brown Springs. I was going to ask, did y'all have any encounters while y'all were there?
We didn't think so, but when I got involved with the guys from Alabama, they started looking through a lot of my pictures that I had taken. And I had actually taken some pictures of when we were at Brown Springs. While we were there, Kumbo was actually telling a story about what happened there at Brown Springs a long time ago, and was telling a little bit of history of Brown Springs and where it all came about and all that. One of the guys in Alabama starts looking at some of those pictures. One of the pictures that I took, and I was focused on Kumbo and a lot of the people that were around us, but in the background, up on top of the hill, you actually see what looks like a Bigfoot head peeking through the trees, looking at us as Kumbo is telling these stories. Now, I don't know if that's really what it is, but it sure looks like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember you showing that photo. That was something, because you really had no idea. And you figure, okay, area like that, there most likely was something watching us, but really couldn't see anything.
Right. We've had a lot of good times, and I would like to, if you don't mind, Mary, let's talk about the other little expedition trip that we had not too long ago. About, what was it, last October?
Yeah. My sister and I, we really wanted to get back to Oklahoma, but we wanted to check out Honobia. Is that how you pronounce it? Honobia?
Honobia. There's so many ways that people say that. I get confused a lot.
But that was, October, I think it was October 22. And we drove out and met up with Chuck at a cabin that's owned by a friend of his. And apparently there's known activity at this cabin. We drove out there and got all set up. And our first morning, I brought out my good Nikon camera, and I was just walking around the property, just snapping random photos, because it's a very pretty property.
Beautiful.
There's a canyon right behind, a bluff at the edge of the property going down into a canyon, and so pretty, so beautiful, yes. And I uploaded those and sent them off to my group, Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, on Facebook. And a friend of mine, he was looking at them, and he said, I think you need to take a closer look at one of these photos. He said, I think you have something here. So I had him show me which one, and I said, you'll point out exactly where on the photo I need to look. And so he gave the little red circle, and I said, okay. So I got on the laptop and I zoomed in on that photo. And I had to zoom in pretty far, but you can make out two figures, and both figures have sagittal crest. And I thought, okay, benefit of the doubt. There's trees over there. There could be stumps. There could be rocks or boulders. And the following morning, Chuck and I walked over there, and we found the spot where these two figures were. And there was nothing there. There were no tree stumps, no rocks, nothing, just the edge of the bluff where two figures were laying, probably just at the edge of the bluff where they were looking and watching me as I walked around taking my photos.
And I will say that the cabin actually has a lot of sightings around there.
Yeah.
I actually casted the very first track on the property. We know that there's two females that are there. One of them is a younger one. I think Mama has two twins. They've been seen by multiple people. She likes to, I think the young one likes to come up to the cabin and ring the doorknob on the front door and tries to get into the cabin when people are there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we actually ticked them off when we were there, because
Yeah.
the last night we were there, about 3:00 in the morning, I could hear the doorknob on the front door being rattled. And
Mm-hmm.
I think you heard it on the other side of the cabin too as well, didn't you?
No, I didn't hear. Yeah, I didn't hear anything over there.
Okay.
I think we could hear movement out the back, though. And then my sister, she was sleeping in the bedroom, and something was throwing gravel up
Right.
against the side of the house, right next to where that bedroom was.
Yeah, there's a tendency of them wanting to, if they're not happy with you and they can't get your attention,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to throw the rocks at you.
Yeah. I was probably mad. It was probably the female, and it was mad that there were two females in there with you, because I think she likes you.
You didn't have to go there. Kim already tells me the reason why she likes me so much is because I casted her footprint.
Yeah, I tease him. It's, to her, that's like putting a ring on the finger.
Yep. Yep. I nicknamed her too. I said, do you have a nickname for her, Chuck, or did the cabin owner? And he said no. And so I said, okay, let's give her a name. I said, let's call her Clementine.
It's been nice talking to y'all.
That's funny. What color is she?
I think she's black. She's black, I think.
She's black.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I know that the guy who owns the cabin, he had some cameras on his cabin, because in that area out there's people, if they see a cabin, they try to go in there and steal stuff and stuff like that. So he put cameras around his cabin. And one night he was in the master bedroom and he heard a noise outside. And I think the light flashed on about that time, and he saw her running across the front yard.
Oh, wow.
And I know several other people have seen her in there in the area, and everybody that describes her is that she has black hair. So I'm sure I don't really know of any brown ones that have ever been seen out that way. I could be wrong, but everything that I've ever seen out there they've had black hair.
Yeah. How long did that last? Her throwing the rocks and gravel?
I think it was long enough to wake up my sister, and she said that by the time she was able to wake up and crawl over to the window and lift the blinds, it was gone.
Okay.
But my sister's a deep sleeper also, so who knows how long they've been throwing rocks.
Did she make any noises, or was it just rocks?
No, it was just rocks.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chuck, wasn't this female seen with twins or something?
Yeah, I think that there's two females, I think, that actually come around the cabin. And I think the real mature female, she has twins. They've seen her with twins. And
Okay.
then there's another female, and she's the one that kind of hangs out when me or the guy who owns the cabin. That's when she comes around and stays around the cabin quite a bit. And I know we've both seen her or know that she's tried to come into the cabin while you're there. And in fact, the day that we left, he brought I think it's his girlfriend, went out there the very next day, and he turned the water on and the electric on for the cabin so they could stay there for the weekend. And I think that was on a Friday. And he said when he went out to turn the water and stuff on, he smelt this rancid smell. He said, I knew what it was when I smelled it. And he said, I decided that it was best for me and her to get in the cabin. And because I don't think she's really familiar with Bigfoot or anything like that. So he wanted to get her in the cabin just in case. And when they got into the cabin, I think about 15, 20 minutes after that, they started getting rocks being thrown on the cabin then too as well. So it's something about having another female in the cabin that she just doesn't care for.
Yep. And it was most likely those twins that I got the picture of. Yeah, I really wish that I could make out features on that photo, but my Nikon, it's really good. It has a 60 times zoom on it, but it was so far out that really can't make out features on the photo, just the shapes and that dark figures.
Yeah. That whole area down there, Mary, is just unbelievable. And Kim, you've never been down there either, but it is, that area is just unreal. It looks like you're in the mountains.
Oh, it is. I highly advise going there. It is so pretty, so beautiful, and the people so friendly. We just loved it there.
Yeah, it's an awesome place to go. And there's been so many sightings down there all through that country. It's not just in one spot. It's that whole area down there is like that. And lots of sightings. And they just put a Bigfoot museum there not too long ago. I think it was built last year, or maybe 21 or 22, somewhere around in there is when they opened it up. And me and Mary and Debbie actually went to the Bigfoot Museum, and they've done a heck of a job on getting that done. And super, super nice people that run the museum. And we sat there and talked to them for like 2 hours while we were there.
Oh, we did. They're so fascinating and so dedicated to the museum and building up the history of what went on in the area. And I think they invited you back to speak. I don't know if you were able to go back or not.
I wasn't able to. Actually, I haven't been able to. I should say it that way. I know that she asked me that day, and then I think a little bit later on, my buddy that owns the cabin, I talked to him. He said, yeah, she wants me and you to come and go to the museum and do some kind of a talk or whatever. And we've just never put it together to get it done.
Oh,
so
one of these days.
Yeah.
You need to do that.
Got to get you back out there.
Yeah, I need to. I need to. My mom was talking to me today that she said, you need to get your equipment up and going. I'm like, okay, Mom.
Now, has your mom been out Bigfooting?
No, she hasn't, but she is a believer. She called me. She lives down in Texas. And one day she was driving in an area known as the Big Thicket.
Oh.
And it was during the day, and she was just driving down the road and seeing how beautiful it was down through there. And it is beautiful there too. And she's a believer. She's never seen one. I think she'd freak out if she ever did.
She'd be like my sister, huh?
Yeah. But she is a believer. She knows that I'm not going to tell some story or nothing. She knows I'm pretty truthful about everything. So yeah. She's definitely a believer.
We'll have to get her up to going out with you. Man, the Big Thicket, geez, that's on my bucket list, I tell you.
Been there.
You're such a bragger.
Yes.
Been there.
And why haven't you taken me there yet?
Right?
Well, we got to get you to come back to Oklahoma.
Yes. Okay.
I know
Tim, you too.
I know the Big Thicket is in Texas, but it doesn't take you very long to get there.
Yeah, man, I'm up for it. Definitely.
I will say that the Bigfoot down there are a little bit different than the ones that I'm familiar with here in Oklahoma.
I was going to say, aren't they a little bit more aggressive?
They are.
Okay. Yep.
I had one in my truck when I was there one night, and it woke me up, and I was sleeping in my truck, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I eased up out of my head was on the driver's side of the truck, and my feet were on the passenger side, and I leaned up out of my seat, and when I look out the passenger window, there's this great big huge face with a big snarl on its face and looking at me. And I thought to myself, oh crap, what am I going to do now? If this thing wants me, it's going to grab me. And so I sat there for just a few seconds and thought, I think the best thing for me to do is to lay back down in the seat of my truck and act like I'm back asleep. And that's what I did. And I waited for about 2 minutes and slowly, easily leaned back to see if it was still there at the window, and it was gone. And the very next day when I woke up finally, and at first I thought I just dreamed it all. I had imagined it or something. That was what was going through my mind. And went over on the driver's side of the passenger side of the pickup, and there was a big ball of hair laying there on the ground right next to my truck.
Oh, jeez.
And I bagged it up and had surgical gloves on and put it in a bag, and I still have it to this day. And I caught that in 2016. It's only been out of the bag one time. And I had a guy that wanted to look at the hair, and so I got it out, and he wanted me to take it out of the bag. So I put my surgical gloves back on and let him look at it up close. But those down there, they're a little bit more aggressive than what in Oklahoma.
Yeah, or Pennsylvania.
Yeah. They got the Texas attitude.
I think a lot of that down there is because they're losing their habitat down there from people building big homes and all kinds of stuff, and they're losing a lot of their habitat, and I think it makes them mad. And one thing I noticed when I was down there at night, you can hear the jets from the Houston International Airport fly over the Big Thicket area. And when those jets come flying over the woods in those areas, the Bigfoot go crazy. They start screaming. And that's where I got, when I had my show, the first thing on the show was an audio record that I had got while I was down there. And it was about the same night that I got the hairball on the side of my truck. And it was, I don't know what it is about the jet airplanes. I don't know if it hurts their ears or what, but whatever it is, it triggers them and they will scream and holler at you when you hear those planes come over.
Wow. Wow.
I'd be mad too.
You would be?
Oh yeah, that would make me mad.
Yep.
Kim, we're going to have to get you back out in the woods.
Yeah, I really want to. I really so badly want to. It's not just even that. It's just my happy place also.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it really is. And I just like being in the woods. People like beaches. I like woods.
Yeah, that's where I find my peace.
Yeah.
If I could go to the woods today, I would in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But with my eyesight the way that's happened and everything that's happened to me, I'm real leery about. I've been out once with my situation and it really scared me.
Yeah, that was scary. Mary, do you know about when he went out not long ago?
I heard about that. If that's the same time, I think you took a video or your friend took a video.
No, we had recorders on. We had stayed out there all afternoon. It was on a lake that's not far from where I live, and it's about an hour drive. But we had spent all afternoon out there and found all kinds of tree structures and stuff. And then that night, I decided that I wasn't going to get out of the pickup because number one, I didn't want to get stumbling around on some logs or something and bust my head open or anything like that.
Yeah.
With my eyesight the way it is, I didn't want to take a chance. But right. We used a device that I will never talk about because the reason I got this device is because I heard this thing worked to bring them in. And,
yeah, I know what it is. Yeah.
We were not disappointed, but it scared the crap out of me because that's the first time ever, Mary, that I've ever felt like I was in some kind of danger.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is that activated them to come up to us like they did that night, but it scared me. I could hear them. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them all around us. And I know that we counted 4 of them that were surrounding our pickup.
Jeez. Yeah, that just the sound alone is horrific.
Yes.
But yeah.
So,
yeah, I've been on different not really expeditions, but night trips with other people where they've used that. And I think one time it was up here in Pennsylvania and nothing happened. So apparently, luckily, nothing was around.
And there's another thing that you could use too, and I've experienced that too, but to me, it's not as aggressive as what I used that night. It was just amazing how fast they came to us.
Yeah.
And they came to us in a hurry.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that I talked him into saying, hey, let's get in the truck. Let's go. We got to go. I told him, we're going to be in trouble if we don't leave now. And because one was behind the truck, one was on my side of the truck and coming toward my door, the passenger side door. And I was right up against the wood line too. I could hear him coming through the wood line, taking steps toward me. And he ended up on the side of the truck and was coming up the side of the truck toward me is when we finally got out of there.
Oh my, that's too close.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would throw that item away.
Somebody asked me if I would ever do that again. And I said, not unless I've got like 10 guys surrounding me that they all have rifles. I might do it then. But
at least 10.
Yeah,
I would go more for 20.
At least 10, and elephant guns, not rifles.
Yes.
I love going out in the woods. I love doing what I do. And number one, I would hate to say something about what we used and somebody
Yes.
get hurt or somebody get killed.
I agree.
And that would devastate me. I'd never be able to get over something like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, whenever we're out somewhere and something nasty happens, I won't give the location. I won't tell what process was used, but because that's the last thing you want is to endanger someone else.
Yeah. To go out and try it. And you don't know what they were coming. I think your situation is pretty evident. They were angry.
Yeah. That's the weird thing about that night is nothing ever screamed at us. We never heard a scream. But what we did hear were two bullfrogs that were in the lake that were probably weighed about 600 pounds. And I knew when I listened to them, it wasn't your average bullfrog. And usually on this particular lake, if there's frogs croaking, there's not just two of them. There's usually hundreds of them. And this was just two frogs. And that was one of the first things that we heard were these 600-pound sounding frogs. And they kept following the sound, coming toward us. And then there was one out in the water on a little island, and he was coming toward the truck. And you could, every time he would take a step, and it was very casual. It was very quiet. But every time he would take a step and wait a few minutes, take another step, wait a few minutes, take another step. And you could hear the water slushing up on his leg where he was dragging his feet through the water.
Oh, my.
And then finally, the one that was in the woods coming toward me. I heard that one as well. And I actually got all that on audio recorder. To actually hear it really good, I'm going to have to enhance it to where you can actually hear what's being done.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, if I can ever get some eye vision back, I might be able to put all that together. There's a lot of things that I'd like to do that I haven't been able to do that I need to do.
Yeah. Don't we all? I know that, I had injured my leg about 20 years ago, so I can't hike anymore. Yeah, and I know you can agree with me. Now that you can't do what you used to be able to do, you squatch smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
You need which reminds me, I was going to say you need to write a book on that, Mary. Let's talk about your book and your podcast and your YouTube channel. Tell us about it.
Okay. I wrote a book last year from talking about my first experience, really from my very first experience and younger, a little bit of my history, all the way up to, whatever happened, any expeditions and investigations that I conducted up until last year. And I've started on the next book also now. But this book is called What I've Learned About Bigfoot, 50 Years and Counting. And that's available on Amazon. All you need to do is type in my name, Mary Fabian, and just type in Bigfoot next to it, and it'll bring up my book.
I will leave a link.
All right, thank you. Every Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I have a podcast. It's called Monkey Wench Podcast. And that's on my Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project YouTube channel. And I have, most of the times, it's just myself chatting. All of my podcasts, they're all live. And so it's just me most of the time chatting with whoever happens to come on to chat in the YouTube chat. And sometimes I'll have a guest. And I think this Wednesday, I'll have a guest on. His name is Terry Ronzio. He's a local Western Pennsylvania gentleman who's had quite a few experiences, not just with Bigfoot, but with other cryptids also.
Very cool.
I'm going to have to listen to that one. Oh, I will be listening. I'll say hi.
Yes, make sure you jump in the chat and say hi.
All right. Was there anything else?
If you're on Facebook, please join the group, Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I subscribe to your channel. And Chuck, whatever you're involved with, let me know. I'm all for you. I'll support you all the way.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Aw.
Yeah, I need to get my stuff together.
Yeah, you do.
Yep, and I'll start saving up my nickels and dimes and pennies for another trip out to Oklahoma.
That sounds great. I would love to have you here.
Yeah.
Get down to Texas and then Big Thicket.
Yes.
I want to go to the Big Thicket too.
Save up your pennies and dimes.
I'm going to. Chuck, talking about the Big Thicket, where were you when you had your encounter? What part of it?
Which encounter?
The one that you were talking about with the coming up to your window that night.
Where was it at? I'm trying to think what that place was called where we were, but I think one of them was called Hunter's Camp.
Oh, okay.
I think that was one of them, but that's not where we originally started at. We started at another place. It was called Monkey Pond, I think. And the one that was peeking in my window was at the Monkey Pond.
Okay.
Wow.
And then the Hunter's Camp is where we had multiple sightings there. The one at Monkey Pond, that was a pretty interesting deal because there were two guys from Kansas that came in on that expedition, and they actually had this great big cement rock thrown at them.
Whoa.
And funny thing is I had a recorder sitting out there in that same area, and these two guys, it was already dark at night, and they had flashlights, and they were actually looking for tracks on the ground and wasn't really looking for anything to be out there. And I can hear chatter on my recorder when that happened. And I also have the audio where you can hear these two guys arguing with each other because each other were arguing about who shoved a rock at me. It's hilarious audio because they're cussing at each other, and I'm sure the Bigfoot is over there just snickering watching these two guys arguing back and forth. But I found they found the concrete that had been thrown at them, and the next morning when I got up, and they had showed me the rock that night after it happened. And the next morning when I got up to go get my recorders, I went and got my recorder, and I grabbed my recorder and I looked down, and not probably 20 yards from where I had my recorder, in the Big Thicket, they have these concrete cylinder like fire places where they built concrete pads around there to where people could put wood there and have a fire, people coming in or whatever. Where that ring was, the concrete ring, one of the pieces of the ring had been broken apart, and that was what hit the guys. It didn't hit the guys, it hit the tree right next to them. And that's where the concrete came from. It grabbed one of the fire pits and broke a piece of it off. It was almost about the size of a basketball.
Oh my.
So It's a great area. You just got to be careful when you're there.
Do you tent camp down there, or what do you do?
Yeah, you can tent camp. When I went, I had taken my tent, and I went in the month of, I think it was February. And when I got there, it was like 52 degrees, and I thought, man, this is going to be a nice little trip. And I set up my tent and everything else, and that night we went out. That very night, I actually saw 2 that night. And then later in the night was when the one looked in the window of my pickup. But it's definitely a heck of a place to go.
Yeah, gotta go. Definitely gotta go.
Yep.
But I remember the trip to the one where you and I had our sighting at the casino.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting the weather to be not quite as bad as what it was. And I did not bring heavy enough clothes. So we had to go to the local Walmart and find some long johns.
Right.
And I think we hit up a Goodwill or something and just trying to layer clothes to be warm enough.
Well, the night when I went to the Big Thicket, like I said, when I got there, it was like 51 degrees that afternoon. I thought, this is going to be a really nice trip.
Mm-hmm.
When it got dark and the temperature dropped to 23 degrees that night.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't have enough clothes. And that's why I slept in my truck that night.
I guess it was a good thing then that you came unprepared.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I think I was shivering all night long that night.
Oh.
It was really cold. It was windy and cold, and it wasn't really, I don't think it was rain. I don't remember it being rainy, but boy, the temperature just dropped after it got dark in a hurry.
Oh,
what would have been serious if he had gone around and was by the door that your head was at.
Yeah, I'm glad I was sleeping. My head was on the driver's side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done the same thing though, Chuck. Whenever they come around and shake my truck, whenever I'm sleeping inside, I just pull the covers up over my head and go back to sleep, and they leave.
Well, it's a heck of a place to go to, and they don't mind coming around your campsites there.
It reminds me of Falk Fork State Park in Ohio. Except they're not quite as nasty or mean-tempered.
Right.
The ones at Salt Fork, at least especially a spot where we camp at, it's all juveniles. And they're mischievous, and they really don't do anything except they'll look in your vehicle or they'll peek down at you in your tent if you don't have a rain fly on, and they'll run through the campsite, or else they'll bang on the side of a trailer, steal your food. But they're pretty bold there. They've been seen during the daytime coming right into camp.
I went to Land Between the Lakes one year, and if you're not familiar with Land Between the Lakes, that's a pretty active area as well. But there was a guy that was camping out there with us at the time, and he had been out there before with his wife. And one night they were sleeping in a tent down there. And the lady, his wife, actually woke up in the middle of the night because there was one that was moving his hand across her head as she was sleeping in the tent.
No, thank you.
She doesn't go there anymore.
Gee, wonder why.
Yeah. I'm just glad I don't have hair on my head.
Yeah, my sister, she refuses to. And I had bought a van, a ProMaster van, and we camped in it last year. But the payments were a little bit beyond what I could handle, so I just sold it a week ago. I may have to either rent a van or she'll have to deal with sleeping in a tent. Most likely I'll rent a van.
I don't blame her, though.
I was looking on the U-Haul website, and I was thinking, oh, it's $19.95 a day vans. That would work.
A lot cheaper, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We need to see when we can put something together.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Yep, we'll figure out where to go and go do some boogering.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Mary.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me on.
It's been really nice getting to talk to you. Chuck talks about you all the time, and I'm like,
oh,
when am I going to meet Mary?
One of these days in person.
Hopefully,
Mary,
real soon.
Mary, I love you, and you're like a big sister to me, and I have so much love for you and Debbie and all the times we've had out in the woods like that. And
it's mutual.
I miss you guys a lot, and I really appreciate you coming on the show with us. It means a lot to me.
I appreciate it. Love you too, Chuck. You're our brother from another mother. Yeah, my sister and I adopted you.
I'm sorry.
I know. we stole you from your mother, but hey, she'll have to share you.
Knowing my mom, she would share me with anybody.
As long as you bring her some of my seafood chowder, huh?
Yeah. I would definitely do that. That's the best chowder I think I've ever eaten.
Yeah, I'll make sure I'll make up another batch whenever I come out.
Sounds great.
Sounds amazing. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to another episode, and we will see you next time. Bye.